It's Thursday here at Revere Beach National Sand Sculpting Festival. The centerpiece is kind of wrapping up. We just have logos left to do. That'll be done in a day or so. The sculptors are moving right along. The official opening ceremonies are this evening. And we're going to go take a walk down and look at all the sculptures individually and see what they have going on. One of the things that the sculptors usually dread is taking the bottom form off. And so that's an advantage that Bob has here, is he has all his forms off already. So there's no concern with it collapsing when he takes the bottom form off. You might not think he has any degree of difficulty with this because it's such a low piece, but I saw his drawing and the sketch shows that every one of these ribs is going to be carved all the way through, and that there will be a fish on the inside. So I'm curious to see that. He has to line up the ribs on this side exactly as the same on the other side, so that when he cuts through, everything makes sense. Because if you start in one place on this side and you get to the other side and it's off, then you've got a pretty uneven rib. So that's the degree of difficulty with what he's doing now. Even though it's a low piece, there is still a degree of difficulty involved. It's also totally a 360 piece. By carving through like this, you're forced to work just as much on the back side as the front side. Some of the sculptures you'll see might not have as much detail on the back side, and they spend a little bit more time on the front, which is viewed from, the A side. So he has to do the same on the back as he does on the front because it's going all the way through. You can see the parts that he does have finished up on the top. The ribs, the top of the ribs are very clean. You can tell, well, I can tell, and hopefully by me describing it, you can tell as well what's finished and what's not. Now, Chris's style, what he's doing is he's kind of blocking out the whole thing. He doesn't have much detail on it yet. He has rough outline sketches, trying to place everything where it's going to be going, so he doesn't get down to a certain point and say, oops, that's in the wrong place. So he's got a lot of rough cutting out right now. I'm not really sure what he's doing. I haven't seen a sketch, so it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here. Almost looks like maybe that's a buzzard on top, and a jaw over here. Hi, Chris. When we talk about degree of difficulty, this is one of the things that we look at. Is you can see this great big hole in the front. A hole going all the way through is not necessarily difficult, but he has a lot of weight up on top of it. So when it comes to cut-throughs, you can see the arch right near where he's working. Not necessarily difficult because the weight is evenly distributed. And it's not to say it's not difficult, but when we're talking about cut-throughs, that's not one of the more difficult cut-throughs. But it still does, gain points, and it is considered. But the hole down here in the front has a lot of weight on top of it. So he has to be careful what gets carved up on top of that hole. You can see he's started to put some texture in the, kind of looks like spikes or claws. Again, I'm not sure what he's doing. It's like, I have to wait and see as well. Unless they've shown me a drawing, I have to wait and figure out what they're doing as well. It can start looking like one thing, and then you come back even an hour later and go, oh my goodness, I had no idea that's what that was going to be. So it's just as interesting for me. Sometimes I don't like to see the drawings because I like to be surprised as well. Yeah, you can also see around the back of Chris's that he's got some big blocking out already done, just to kind of give himself an idea of where everything is going to be going and make sure that he's in the right place with all his elements. So I guess, he can carve. All that talk, No, I know he can carve. But it's nice to see Chris carving and not talking for a change. Right, Chris? Okay, Dan Doubleday. Wow, it's tall. Dan has a different, this is going to be different than all the others. I can tell already just by looking at it. I'm not really sure where he's going with it, but I can guess that it's a forced perspective. It looks like there's a pole going through two towers or beams, kind of, and this is going to be one of those sculptures that's standing right here. It may look like one thing, but when you back up, it's going to look like something totally different. I think from the pavilion it's going to probably have more of an impact than standing right down here in front of it. Not only because it's so tall and you can't really see the whole thing at once, but you could lose the lines. I can see he has lines etched in it, and that's why I'm guessing he's setting up the forced perspective. Be interesting to see what's going on down below. He has a lot of flat planes, and sometimes flat planes can be, just as difficult as other elements because it has to be correct, and you can see from the side how sheer it is. And sheer in this sand isn't that difficult, but really tall like this and sheer can be tricky. And again, like what I was mentioning with Chris's hole in the front, he has the weight right here up on top of that cut through. So it's a pretty, and this is another thing with cut throughs. What I was talking about with the arch with Chris's, the cut throughs need to make sense for it to be what we call a difficult cut through. That you don't just put an arch there just so you can have a cut through. Whereas Dan here, and then there are others that when we walk down, we'll notice the cut through has a meaning and a purpose that it has to be there in order for this sculpture to work. I'm real curious to see where this one's going. Here she is again, doing another massive piece. For a little girl, she sure can move some sand. We mentioned the first day that, a lot of this is very physical, and you can look on the ground and see that Sue is not up on a pad or a mound like some of the other sculptors are. So that means she put her forms pretty much flat on the ground and then filled them totally with sand. So she has used all her sand in her plot into these forms. And the one thing about going massive and going big, though, you still have to carve it. And the larger the sculpture is, the more surface area there is to carve. So that is time consuming and adds to the degree of difficulty. She's doing her blocking out right now using a small hand shovel with a nice sharp edge to get large surfaces. It looks like probably from standing in front two figures facing each other.
Are you narrating what I'm doing?
Yep. Mm-hmm. You want to help out here?
Right now I'm trying to get both sides even. Okay. Can you tell what it is yet?
No, my guess. Oh, wait, we were talking at lunch. Now, because I was thinking two figures facing each other with something in the middle. But now I remember you said something about an angel, a self-portrait angel.
Yeah, she's a very special angel.
Okay. Uh-huh. Well, I haven't seen any drawings, but you refreshed my memory that. Oh, here we have a sketch. Oh, she's backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
mm-hmm. But right now I'm trying to
nice.
get both sides somewhat
the same.
even. Yeah.
And
so the left side's a little high.
Mm-hmm.
I have to take that down, but I think the wings are also a little lopsided. But I'll just keep working at it.
You will. You always do.
Yep.
And that does add to the degree of difficulty is that when things have to be the same on both sides.
Oh yeah. It's very hard to get both sides the same.
Yeah.
Same, like it's just like a face, doing a face. It's easy to get one side done, but to make the other side match is very hard.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm very right-handed, so that makes it really difficult for me. When I get to the left side, it's like, okay, whoopsie.
Actually, I've been practicing with my left hand. It's getting better and better.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get to the point where I can carve with both
hands.
Yeah, at the same time,
yeah.
So that way you can see that you're doing both sides.
It's kind of goes like it's like martial arts there when you carve them with both hands. All right, I won't bother you. Now, looking at the sketch, I'm guessing that where my finger is right here, that's going to be cut through. And, what I was referring to before about cut throughs is what makes it more difficult is when it has to make sense, when it has to be part of the sculpture, or if it collapses, it doesn't make any sense anymore, like her halo will be gone. So this is giving her halo is going to be the cut through, I think. I'm curious to see. We'll see where she goes with that. Well, Benjamin is well underway here. He always does beautiful faces. He still has his bottom form on. One of the things with this sand is it's very structural. It's strong. It holds cut-throughs pretty well, and sheerness and delicacy, but it doesn't like overhangs, and it doesn't like weight up on top because it is so dense. We'll get down to some of the other sculptures and I'll give you an example of an overhang. But this right here on the corner where you see her hands coming out, if there's a chance that something's going to collapse or fall on this sculpture, it would be those corners where the arms are sticking out because there's so much weight out there. With if you look straight down, it looks like he's going to be cutting out underneath the hands, so there won't be any support underneath the hands, which adds to the degree of difficulty. Benjamin always uses some nice textures. You can see the texture he has on her body, which is always, sand is only one color, so the only thing we have to work with is shadows that can create depth, cutting in deep. You can see just like where next to her neck, you can see the dark spots in there. That adds to, it makes it pop, gives it some more shadow and gets definition between the elements. And the texture on her body, that's the same concept. It's giving it a little bit of, the texture gives it a different, almost like it's another color. I haven't seen any drawings of Benjamin, so I'm not sure what his final piece is going to be or what he has in mind. But we'll find out as we go along. Moving right along here. One of the things that I was talking about before were the overhangs. And if you look at the side of Justin's, if you go and look at the side view, this is what I'm talking about. The hair on the face and the nose, how much they're hanging over. There's quite a bit of weight up in there. So that does add to the degree of difficulty. And actually the character on the far right has even a larger overhang on the pompadour hairstyle. Is that what you call it? A pompadour? Yeah. He is blocking out, carving away. But what you can see, Justin has a lot of finished surface already. The hairlines are all finished. The character on the left, all the way down to his mouth, is finished. And I can tell that because of how smooth it is. You can tell the difference between the face on the left and the face on the right, and in the middle, they're just blocked out. And the one on the left is all nice and smooth and has all the nice, deep, dark shadow lines in it, giving it some character. I have no idea what he's got going here, but it's obviously a story. There's something meaningful between these three characters, and then there's a pound up right here to my right and one to my left that what he's doing is he's actually reusing his sand as well. He has used, I talked about Sue's, how she was pretty flat on the ground, so is Justin. So he's used all his sand once, and now everything he's carving away, he's putting into this form to my left. So he's actually reusing it. And in the finished product, that'll show because he'll have so much surface that's carved with all these three different, we call these two off to the side, we call those satellites when there's a sculpture off to the side. So he's got a pretty complex thing going on, and a lot of elements that, one of the things you have to do when you very first set your forms up, if he's doing a story, some type of story here that it has to make sense, he has to know that these forms are in the right place, because once you start shoveling that sand into there, you can't move that. So we call it plot management. You look at your plot the very first day and you figure out where everything's going before you ever even move a grain of sand. There's a lot of engineering that goes into it to know exactly where everything's going. The side where we are now, you can see very rough blocking out. And you'll see that every sculptor has to block out. What they usually do is take 2 or 3 sets of forms off right away and start blocking out and getting their proportion, because if you take just the top form off and you start carving, you can get 2, 3, 4 feet down and just say, whoops, that's not in the right place. I don't have enough room to finish the body, or this guy's not going to end up with any legs on him because I didn't start it out correctly. So they usually take off a few sets of forms right from the beginning to start their blocking out so that they can get their proportion correct. You'll notice how fast they work too. I mean, there's no time for sitting around and staring at your piece. I mean, you have to continuously move that sand Steve's moving right along. Looks good. Yeah, he mentioned a little bit of a different style, a little bit more, I thought he said surreal or futuristic. I can't remember when we had our original conversation. This is another one. I haven't seen the sketch of it, but it's moving right along. He has a nice feature up top where he's got the, what should I call it? Almost looks like blades fanning out, one on top of the other. When you have peaks like that, a peak straight up in the air is not as difficult as a peak that's curving because you have the weight on top of it that the bottom needs to support it. Looks like maybe this is some type of a headdress on a face. Yeah, nice. Curious to see where it's going. Yeah, Steve has another, has a satellite as well. So what that means is he already has an idea, a preconceived idea of whatever this form off to the side is going to be, and it will definitely have something to do with the piece. A lot of the sculptors will do different elements, take up more space on their plot. It makes the piece complete. Not to say that a standalone piece isn't complete by any means, but it just adds, it's kind of nice that when you come out and you look at all the sculptures, they're not all just one sculpture in the middle of the beach. They're all a little bit different. Some have satellites and off pieces off to the side. All right, here's Joby being Joby again. Amazing. I see Joby only carved maybe 2 or 3 times a year that I actually get to watch him in action. It's kind of nice to be able to watch these sculptors. Usually when you're competing against them, you don't get a chance to watch because you're all sculpting at the same time. So it's nice to watch the different techniques. And one of the things that Joby does amazingly well is not only is he cutting through, you'll see many angles of this cutting through, but when you look inside, it's all smooth. I mean, not only is he cutting through and everything has to make sense because it's symmetrical, but if you look through the hole where I'm looking right now, it's smooth inside there. So cutting out is one thing, but then actually either texturing or smoothing out the inside, he has to get in there. And you get to a point sometimes where your body is so limited to what it can do because of what you've sculpted, and you have to follow through. That would, if he's going to do a cut through, he's got to follow through with it and make sure that it is clean and makes sense all the way through. I have no idea what he's got in mind here, but it's already very intriguing, and you can see how smooth and clean. What I like about what Joby does is he has a contrast of hard lines and soft lines and different textures, so that gives you definition between the different levels. And this actually looks like something opening up or closing, coming into itself or going out of itself. I'd be curious to see where he goes with this. Sometimes you just walk up to a piece and get a really nice feeling, and that's one of the things with the judging. One of the categories is the wow factor or the original impact, overall impact, and you just kind of look at this with all this air and all this space to it, and you just go, wow, that's really cool. And then you've got the woman off to the right who already, it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful figure. I do know that Dan is doing a tribute to his mother. She passed away this year, and he's doing a tribute to her. I don't know what it's going to be, but I did hear him talking to somebody about that it will be in memory of his mother. He's got a little bird on top. He does have 3 layers of forms off, and you can see the flat sides on this section right here, the 3rd section down, and that's what it looks like when they take their forms off. It's just flat, a big old block of sand that they then have to carve away, and that's what he's doing now. He's blocking out portions of it so he knows where everything's going to go. Get that proportioned correct. We talked a little bit about overhangs and the weight factor. There are also delicate overhangs, and that's what Matt has going on right here. If you look at the side view of this face, the chin, not only is it sticking out and it's undercut, which means you've got your farthest out portion, and then this is all undercut. So not only is this weight on top of your undercut, he's hollowed out in here, and it's a delicate undercut. And then this is all, it's getting undercut each time you go in, so that adds to the degree of difficulty. And that's what we mean when we talk about overhangs and undercuts. Matt still has his bottom form on, but I don't think there's any concern with him taking that bottom form off because he's not sheer up and down, and he has stepped his second form in a little bit. You can see here that Matt's first form ends right here, and he has about another 6 to 8 inches that he has stepped in the second form. So it's not hanging over the edge, it's not sheer straight up and down, so he shouldn't have any problem taking off that bottom form.